and welcome to the Electrification Coalition's webinar series on transportation electrification. My name is Brant Hertenstein, and I'm a program manager here at the EC. Today, our webinar will focus on the municipalities and their transportation electrification future. But before we get started, I do want to go over a couple of things. So first, for housekeeping, we have three wonderful speakers today who will give about a 15-minute speech on their respective cities and metropolitan areas, and then we will have Q&A for like the last 10 minutes or so. So if you have questions, can you please put them in the Q&A, and then we'll try to get to as many as we possibly can. I also want to quickly bring up the aftermath of the passing of H.R. 1, also called the Big Beautiful Bill Act. For many of you, elective pay has been a valuable asset as tax-exempt entities were able to take advantage of tax credits for the first time. Elective pay was supposed to end in 2032. However, due to the passing of the bill, the tax credits are now set to expire on September 30th this year for vehicles. So if you are able, please prioritize those EV purchases and put those new vehicles into service by September 30th to take advantage of those significant cost savings. If you're intending to make purchases and utilize the clean vehicle tax credit, you must have them in service by September 30th of 2025. The EV infrastructure tax credit, or 30C, is in a very similar situation, although it has been given a little bit more grace. That tax credit ends on June 30th, 2026. So again, being placed in service by June 30th, 2026 for EV infrastructure is a very important date for everyone. This is important because many of us were using those tax credits to accelerate the purchase of EVs and EV infrastructure. And I wanted to call it out on this call because even today I was on the IRS website and those changes have not been reflected on the website. So if you happen to look it up and see if they were still available, the information has not been updated. The EC will be having a webinar on Tuesday, August 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern called EV Tax Credits Are Ending, What You Need to Know and What Comes Next. Please join us as we discuss not only what you need to do in the next few months, but planning out what communities can be doing after those tax credits are gone. Now to the main event of this webinar. Back in February of 2025, the EC released our Municipalities Playbook. It was a journey to uncover all the great things municipalities have been doing across the United States in transportation electrification. It comes at a great time for municipalities that this new administration has halted federal funding for many EV and EVSE or electric vehicle supply equipment projects, and many cities are asking themselves, what are we going to do next? There are entities who are relying on the awards that have been given to them or have been keen on winning federal funding money, planning out applying for money in the future. There are entities that are more apprehensive than ever to commit to EVs and electric vehicle infrastructure, and that's where we wanted this playbook to come in. We felt it was important to illustrate that things are still moving forward, projects are still getting completed, and cities can still implement their EV-related projects. Many cities have a climate or transportation plan, so they already have it approved by their councils or boards to move forward with achieving some of these goals and are looking for ways to continue these efforts. On our EC Municipalities Playbook website, it's broken down into 4 categories: charging, freight, fleets, and consumer. As you go to each of these categories, they're broken down into subcategories, giving cities different pathways they can focus on based on what their needs are at the time. Each subcategory gives a short summary on how to proceed down these pathways and gives case studies or insights from cities that have executed these subcategories in hopes that these cases will be guiding lights for those that want to pursue them. We really try to focus on the most recent ones, so there's only a few that occur outside the past few years, but most of them have occurred since 2023. And what better way to get some of these insights than from hearing from those that are included in the playbook? So today, we have Simi Barr from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Wendy Cho-Rip from King County Metro in the state of Washington, and Aaron Tauber from the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. Today, they'll be discussing all the incredible things that they're doing at the local level to accelerate transportation. So without further ado, Simi, take it away.
Thank you, Brant. And thanks for having me. I look forward to sharing a few of the things that we've done here in Ann Arbor to promote transportation electrification throughout the community. So I'll start just introducing myself. My name's Simi Barr, Senior Analyst for Municipal Operations in Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations. I work on reducing the environmental impact of city operations generally. So that means energy projects at city facilities like energy efficiency and solar and battery storage projects. But it also touches on fleet electrification and public EV charging, and that's sort of where we bump up against transportation electrification. And I'm really happy to share some of our projects and initiatives that are in progress and slated to happen in the future with you here. So to set the scene, Ann Arbor's had a long history of climate action, dating back decades to early Earth Days happening at the University of Michigan. But in the municipal space, we've had an energy commission that was founded in 1985, an environmental commission founded in the early 2000s, and we've also had a green fleets team and a green fleets policy that is over 2 decades old now. And that green fleets, the purpose of that is to reduce the environmental impact of the city fleet. So we've been on a long path and continue along that path of climate action here in Ann Arbor, and more recently, in 2019, City Council declared a climate emergency and tasked the Office of Sustainability with the creation of a climate action plan. So in 2020, that plan was completed and adopted by City Council, and it has the ambitious goal of community-wide carbon neutrality reached by 2030. That plan involved a lot of community input as well as work with technical experts and city staff to really distill down a lot of different types of initiatives and ideas into what ultimately became the A20 plan. The plan has 7 strategies and 44 sort of actions that branch out from these strategies, and I've got them up on the screen here, but we can see strategy 1 is around powering the grid with 100% clean and renewable energy. Strategy 2 is focusing on the electrification of appliances and vehicles. Strategy 3 focuses on energy efficiency. Strategy 4 is around reducing VMT. Strategy 5 is around circular economy. Strategy 6 is resilience. And then we've got some miscellaneous items that fall into our 7th category. So a lot of my work falls into strategies 1, 2, and 3, and really strategy 2 is where our transportation electrification initiatives show up, and so I'll be speaking quite a bit about that here today. I'd be remiss not to mention that along with the electrification of vehicles, obviously strategies 1 and 4 really play into this work as well. So making sure the electricity we're using to power those vehicles is clean and renewable, and at the same time we're shifting away from single occupancy vehicles as much as we can, supporting multimodal transportation in the community. So within strategy 2, we have these 6 actions and initiatives within there. So we're looking at promoting electrification with homes and businesses, electrification of transit buses, bulk buys for electric vehicles, electrification of the city and private fleets, and then the overall expansion of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. One note here is, so some of these are in progress, some are slated to occur at later dates. For instance, we've done solar bulk buys. We haven't yet done a community electric vehicle bulk buy, but have had conversations and are sort of, in the early stages of planning some of those things. There are also some things in here that the city doesn't control, at least directly. So for instance, the bus system is not directly controlled by the city of Ann Arbor. We have the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority that runs buses in and around the city of Ann Arbor. They're on their own journey as far as reducing the impact of their fleet, which the city is supporting in whatever way we can. But they're on their own sort of zero emissions bus journey that I'm really excited to see more about in the future. Oops. So I wanted to mention that expansion of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So we have done quite a bit of work to expand charging infrastructure by installing city-owned chargers around the city of Ann Arbor. So most of this occurs on city property. So we've done things like expanding public charging in downtown parking garages with 40 level 2 dual port stations across 7 or so parking garages. We've also recently finished the expansion throughout 5 more park sites, 13 level 2 dual port stations at those parks facilities. Those are all paired with solar carports and PV systems. We've got in 2021, we installed 4 shared fast chargers at City Hall. So those are publicly available, but also shared with our city fleet. And we've also, in 2023, installed 3 level 2 ports curbside. And that's what we see here on the right. Those are the first utility pole mounted curbside chargers in the region in Southeast Michigan. So we're really excited to put those in. And in addition, in progress, we've got a charging and fueling infrastructure grant program with where we're looking to expand to around 36 more level 2 ports and 12 fast charging ports around the city of Ann Arbor. So working on progressing that. And those are all sort of city-owned assets that we've distributed throughout the community. We've also done things to sort of provide targeted support in areas where we see a lot of need. So in a lot of the community engagement we've done, we realize that there really is support that's needed in multi-unit spaces and commercial entities that are looking to electrify or bring in EV charging. So we've done a few things to engage with those communities, including developing a toolkit for EV charging in multi-unit dwellings. It looks at some of the barriers and opportunities when it comes to apartment complexes and condos, things like that. And we also put in 3 case studies of local Ann Arbor communities that have achieved EV charging in various configurations. We've also are currently piloting a commercial and multi-unit dwelling discount program where we provide discounted EV chargers to those entities with an agreement to keep them publicly accessible and under certain rates to use. So that's a pretty exciting program, and we're working to install at our first site here in the very near future. Another program or initiative we've implemented was the implementation of an EV readiness ordinance. So when site plans go to our planning commission, they are required to have various levels of EV charging infrastructure corresponding to the different types of properties they're on to ensure we have chargers installed, and then also the future capacity to install more chargers as the demand grows. We've done things like vehicle ride and drives and show off vehicles at our public events, having EV drivers come out and get to speak with members of the community about what it's like to own and operate an EV here in the community. And we really find that gives people, a better on the ground insight as to what it's like to have an EV, and then can better sort of picture themselves having the access to that technology. And then I mentioned earlier the potential for future EV and EVSE bulk buy programs and opportunities. In Ann Arbor, we've had a really successful solar bulk buy program called Solarize, and sort of basing a similar EV program off of that. Thanks, Brant. I didn't realize I was behind a slide. This targeted support is largely based off of this heat map we see on the right. So we've done some mapping activities here in Ann Arbor to identify our high priority areas for EV charging when it comes to EV charging in the community. So taking a GIS map of the city and dividing it into census tracts, and then looking at things like the Washtenaw County Access to Opportunity Index, as well as the density of multi-unit dwellings, and the distribution of current EV chargers and bus stops. And then we overlay those things and create this heat map where darker areas correspond to areas of higher priority. So then when we have our higher priority tracks, we can go in, identify city sites in those locations where we could potentially deploy public EV chargers, or we also identify potential partner organizations that we could collaborate with, like libraries or community centers or shopping centers that we could engage with to discuss potential for EV charging at those sites. We have a public dashboard where we display, all sorts of metrics that relate to the ongoing sustainability work we have in Ann Arbor. But one of those things we track is EV registrations within the Ann Arbor area. So on the left here, we see the registered vehicles within Ann Arbor exceeding, almost to 12% at this point. EVs, that includes battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and hybrid vehicles. But on the right, you can see we're also tracking the state numbers and are significantly exceed those at the current moment. Beyond those programs, we also focus on fleet electrification. So City Council has provided directives to staff for electrification of the city fleet. So we've modified our fleet funding schedule so that, and the depreciation rates, so that we are saving enough on an annual basis that we can, cover the delta for an electric vehicle when it comes time to replace. We basically assume that every vehicle that comes up for replacement is going to be replaced with an electric vehicle, unless a specific circumstance exists that can't happen. So in last year, we reached 25% electrification of the city fleet. We're closer to 30% now, but we're also sort of hitting a plateau where we've got a lot of sort of tougher to electrify segments of the fleet, and having some conversations about how we do that when it comes to things like pickup trucks of a certain size, utility pickup trucks, police pursuit vehicles, snow plows, all these sorts of vehicles that are a little bit tougher to electrify. And we're utilizing collaborative procurement platforms for those EV purchases, things like MyDeal and Sourcewell. Here are our numbers for the city fleet. So you can see, we've electrified significantly, especially within the light fleet since the year 2020. The heavy fleet is a little bit more slow going, and that's largely due to market availability of what's out there. So what we have done is, when it comes to electrification within the heavy fleet, includes an electric forklift, some lawnmowers, riding lawnmowers, off-road utility vehicles, a bucket truck that does signs and signals maintenance downtown, bike lane sweeper, and now this year we've received 4 electric refuse trucks that we've had on order. So those are starting to operate here in the city as well. We've utilized a few avenues of state and federal funding when it comes to those, including the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, Fuel Transformation Program, and the Michigan Clean Diesel Program. So with that, I'm really happy that I was able to share some of these things with you. And here's my email, and I'd be happy to, if anybody has questions in the future about anything you've heard, feel free to reach out. With that, I'll pass it back to Brant.
All right, Sammy, thank you so much for that. Really interesting to see all the things that Ann Arbor is working on, from infrastructure to light duty vehicles and medium and heavy duty vehicles as well. Next, I'm going to turn it to Wendy Cho-Rip from King County Metro. Wendy, please introduce yourself, and looking forward to your presentation.
Hi, I'm Wendy Cho-Rip. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the privilege of working at King County Metro, which is based in Seattle, Washington. So just to get started, I want to give you a quick overview. We are the 7th largest transit agency in the U.S. We are governed by the county government, and so we report to the county executive. We operate a lot of different modes of transportation, all of which we're going to have to figure out how to get to zero emissions. So we've got buses, DART vehicles, van pool, smaller vehicles that we use for rideshare programs, microtransit, as well as getting our staff out in the field so they can support our operations. We also operate a marine division, so we've got a couple passenger-only boats that operate out of downtown Seattle. And we are also contracted to operate and maintain Sound Transit's light rail network. So our electrification targets are really guided by the Strategic Climate Action Plan. This is a countywide effort. It involved collaboration with all the departments within the county, so everything from solid waste, wastewater, roads, DNRP, parks and recreation, arts, just everything you can think of. We're all coming together, and we're strategizing together of what are some targets we want to hit to really reduce greenhouse gas emissions and ensure that we have a great environment for our residents going forward. We also do a lot of engagement with community groups and partners within the community to inform the Strategic Climate Action Plan. So what I have on here is some specific electrification targets that are targeted at King County Metro. And you'll see that there are different percentages with different years. The big one that has really been driving a lot of the work is this very, very ambitious goal to get to 100% zero emissions by 2035. It was originally 2040, and then it got pushed to 2035. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're working towards that goal. So this is just a slide to show you a portfolio of our various programs, just to help visualize some of the work we're doing. So within the bus, we have a lot of diesel hybrid buses that we need to figure out how to convert. And so this lists some of the key capital infrastructure projects, as well as planning projects, procurement, software programs that are really key to support transportation electrification. We are also very unique. Fun fact, we are one of 4 transit agencies in the US that still operates an electric trolley network. And so that is really the foundation and heart of our electrification program. And so we really need to maintain and modernize that program. And so we've got a number of strategic initiatives around that. We also have the marine, which I mentioned. If you know anything about waterfront, it's a crowded environment. There's a lot of environmental rules and regulations. And so we really want to partner closely with the folks that are on the waterfront who are also trying to hit very ambitious electrification goals. Washington State has a very large passenger ferry, as well as car ferry system that they're electrifying. They're in the process of getting like a 15 megawatt connection on the waterfront. Our facility is next door. We also work very closely with Kitsap Transit, which is on the other side of the water. They also operate a passenger ferry, and we share a site. And then we have the Port of Seattle. There's a very big cruise ship industry. They've already installed some onshore power connections so that when those cruise ships are here, they're not having to use their diesel. They're able to plug into clean electricity. And then, like I mentioned, we've got all of these other different types of vehicles that we need to build out charging infrastructure as well as procure those electric vehicles. This is a slide showing you some of our key bus milestones. If I had a little more time, I would have added a couple more things. I think what's really unique about King County Metro and has really given us an advantage compared to other transit agencies is that trolley bus network. Metro was incorporated in 1973. We brought together the municipal Seattle trolley bus lines, and it was merged with our suburban bus system. And when we merged together, there was actually a big debate. Should we get rid of these trolley buses? Should we keep them? There's some great articles and editorials, if you like looking at historical documents like I do, where people are debating what should we do. And I loved one of the letters someone wrote of, we got to keep this. I don't want dirty diesel exhaust fumes in my face when I'm waiting for a bus. And luckily we made that decision to modernize that system and keep it. And that has given us a really great foundation of having a power distribution group filled with really great electricians who are trained, understand how to use and how to work with electrical equipment. So they are ready to go to support our charging infrastructure as we transition towards that. Metro was also an early adopter of diesel hybrid buses. We got our first one in 2004. And in 2020, we retired our last diesel bus, and we have all diesel hybrids. And that allowed our vehicle maintenance team to get a lot of experience working with batteries. There are battery packs already on our buses, and now we're just going to get bigger battery packs with those battery electric buses. And so those two things, I think, has really poised us to hit the ground running as we make this transition. So today I want to highlight two key projects, one that's already happened and one that's about to open next year. Is my slide moving? All right. So this is a photo of South Base Test Facility. This is located in Tukwila, which is just south of Seattle. We took a portion of our existing South Base, and this site was designed in partnership with Seattle City Light, which is our local utility, and they brought in a partner, EPRI. Some of you may be familiar, they're a utility work group. And together we designed this site to really be a testing facility. We wanted to be able to test different charging types and charging vendors. So we have a mix of pantograph down, which is what the photo shows. So this is a pantograph arm. It comes down. There are bars on the bus, and it touches, and that's how the power is transferred. We also have some plug-in charging at this site. We originally hoped to have 3 different charger manufacturers. Due to procurement and long timelines, we pivoted, and now we just have Heliox and ABB chargers. This site has been really critical for us in being able to test a lot of things that might sound simple, but being able to line up that bus to be able to connect to the pantograph is critical. I heard of a transit agency that had to actually dig up concrete and redesign the sidewalk and how the pantograph was because the bus wasn't lining up properly with it. We also originally thought that, hey, all the technology is going to work. We won't need a manual button in the bus to, hey, pantograph, can you come down and start charging? But as we were testing, we realized it didn't always work as expected, and we wanted more redundancy. So we added that button that if the charging protocol communications didn't work, that you could push a button and get the pantograph to come down. This site is also very heavily reliant on software. I think a lot of you may start seeing that as you go through your electrification journey. You're relying on software that's within that charger, right? That's controlling how much power you're getting, what speed. There's equipment within your electric vehicle. It's monitoring all sorts of data, state of health of the battery, how much power is it getting, how much power is it consuming. And so all these systems need to talk to each other, and the hardware needs to work, the software needs to work. And this site for us has been really valuable in being able to troubleshoot and learn. There was a period where we just were only getting about 50% of our buses charged. We actually shut down the site for 2 weeks. We brought the charging vendor, the bus OEM, and key folks from our staff to do a lot of testing and troubleshooting to figure out the root cause. And that has really helped inform a lot of our future operations. And the big thing we are working towards right now is just next door to that, we're going to be opening next year Tukwila Base. This will be our first 100% battery electric bus facility. We're going to have a mix of Gillig buses as well as New Flyer buses. We will be having 360 kilowatt charging cabinets, and they will be attached to 4 pantographs. So we'll have 1 pantograph to 1 bus ratio. And then we will also have 3 fast chargers at the site. We are really excited for the opening of this because it's a big milestone in our journey to getting to 100% ZE. One thing that we are really conscientious about in this transition is the customer, like our staff, I view them as customers, their experience with this transition. Here's just really quickly timeline. We are, as I mentioned, currently doing construction. We are commissioning chargers, which means making sure the chargers are working as anticipated. We are also getting these new Gillig buses that will supplement the New Flyer buses we already have. And we're doing a lot of activities to make sure we have updated business processes and that staff are ready to do operations in a different way. So we hired 2 folks to really help lead some of this work. We call it the operational readiness lead and then our base activation lead. Operational readiness is more of like a high level across different departments, policy-wise, business processes, labor strategy and relations. They're thinking about those elements, whereas base activation is much more on the ground. Okay, what are new SOPs, standard operating procedures we need? Do we have the right equipment? Do we have the right level of staff? What's the service we're planning to deliver? So some of the work we are doing to get ready to open Tukwila Base, there are specific projects. So one is a coach quarantine area standard. Thermal events are very rare with electric vehicles, but I think many of us know if they do occur, the impact can be very devastating. And so we are making a recommendation to have a quarantine area if there is a bus that we suspect has an issue with the battery pack, that it's not in the yard with all of our other vehicles, it's somewhere else isolated. And then part of that is also response. What do we do if there is an event? How do we ensure our staff are trained properly to know how to engage with first responders? The other thing, charger asset naming, yard layover position labeling. Sounds like a very simple project, but some of you, if you've worked in asset management, you might notice sometimes in systems we have 4 different names for the same piece of equipment or for the same site. And so we really want to make sure with this new facility that we are naming everything in the same way so that when we are using that naming convention in asset management or our different software systems that we're going to be procuring, that we are identifying things in the same way. Charger maintenance, service level agreements. The charging infrastructure is very, very critical. We need to ensure those chargers are working. This is something new, right? We haven't had this typically, and so we're doing a lot of negotiations with the ABB to understand what that agreement will look like and the costs. And then we're doing a lot of, like I said, SOPs for things like what happens if there is a major power outage? How will we react to that? How do we ensure that we're able to continue delivering service? If there is a software issue, how do we deal with that so that we have backup plans ready to go? So software, I did want to highlight that because for us, especially being a large agency, we really need to be able to scale some of this work. And some of these things just, if you've got 20 vehicles, you can do it manually, but when you've got 120 at a site, it can become very onerous. So some new systems that we are getting that will be launched with the opening of Tukwila Base include charge management. which will help monitor the status of the charger, as well as allow us to schedule the energy usage and to do a certain charging plan to ensure that all of our buses are able to get out on the road with the appropriate amount of power to deliver their service. Telematics, we are updating that system as well so that we can monitor, hey, bus 405 is out. We thought it was going to have, enough charge, but it looks like it's getting really low. We might need to pull it in, right? Do we need to send a relief bus out? Things like that. And then yard management is really going to be like the brain behind this. The vehicles are parked in a yard. It's lane parking, which means the bus cannot independently leave the yard, right? It is 5x5 buses, right? So they're packed in. So the yard management system is really to help ensure that buses are scheduled, their charging is scheduled so that they can independently leave when they're ready to go, and that buses aren't stuck behind another bus and they can't get out because the bus in front of it needs to charge more before it can leave. And that yard management too that's really a big change, because a lot of that has been literally pieces of paper. There's someone there in the yard that just says, go park in this spot. Hey, you go get that bus. And we're going to be transitioning all of that to a digital system. So in short, we're doing a lot of work to get ready for Tukwila base opening. Like I said, that experience for our staff is really critical. There is sometimes, misinformation of what it might be like to be in 100% zero emissions environment. And so we want to address any concerns staff have and have really good processes in place for things that might look different with an electric bus versus a diesel hybrid bus. So thanks.
Wendy, that was so informative. Thank you for that presentation. I really enjoy the Tukwila project, not just because of the pantographs and the current ones you have, because I think those are super awesome, but also just the other considerations that you're taking into account as you're building up that project, like the quarantine area. It's super cool that you are thinking about those things and that you have them ready to go, so that when the project's ready, like, you've got it completely thought out. All right, the next speaker will be Aaron Tauber from Charlotte. In order to keep this as short as possible, Aaron, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Brant. Thanks for having me. So hey, everybody, Aaron Tauber. I am the Sustainable Infrastructure Strategy Manager here in the City of Charlotte's Office of Sustainability and Resilience. I'll talk to you a little bit today about our fleet, break down a little bit about our fleet makeup, our demographics, but then also more so on our process, how we look at things and how we're moving fleet electrification and zero carbon emission vehicles forward. So always like to level set. So our mission here in our Office of Sustainability and the City of Charlotte as a whole is to lead as a global city when it comes to our environment, our community, our economy, but then also while ensuring equity and resilience for today's and for future generations. So this is really kind of our leading charge, and really just level set here that this is the focus of our office. So a little more level setting. So here we have just kind of our path. We've really started before 2018, but formally 2018, our city council adopted our Sustainable and Resilient Resolution by 2050 resolution, and that led towards our first Strategic Energy Action Plan. We call it our CAP, which is essentially our climate action plan, and that laid the path for how we're to implement a zero carbon community and set forth goals community-wide and internal to the city operation goals as well. So after the passage of our CAP, we spent the next 5 years in the implementation phase, with everything from city buildings, city fleet, community programs and projects, guiding us towards working towards achieving that zero carbon goal. So in this past year, we revisited our CAP and made an update to align the policy and the plan with the latest science, newer citywide plans. So over that time, we've adopted other citywide plans that we wanted to weave into our climate action plan. Also took a look at climate risk assessment, and then priorities as brought forth by our city council. And this CAP update, we call it our CAP Plus, was just recently adopted back in May. So we're getting started, eagerly started on developing an implementation plan for that. But you can see here in this in these images, right, fleet electrification, we have a pretty broad strategy. So you can see our city manager plug it in, his vehicle along with our electric street sweeper, Sweepy McSweepface. We held a naming contest and that was our winner. And then EV buses as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about most of this. So with our CAP Plus, with our update, we do have a community-wide goal. That's to be net zero carbon community-wide by 2050. But then we also have these internal municipal specific goals. One about our buildings. We want to have 100% zero carbon electricity use by 2030, but then also net zero emissions by 2050. And then in line with today's webinar, so looking at our fleet, our light duty fleet, to reach net zero emissions by 2035, and then the entire fleet by 2050. And so similar to the other, to CME, you know, with the last 5 years of implementation, that goals changed a little bit, kind of with the realization of limitations in the market in some of our sectors, really largely in the medium and some of the heavy duty fleet sectors. So we're looking at different options for zero emissions in those sectors, while really pushing the needle to go as fast as we can with our light duty fleet as well. So the CAP has these 4 focus areas, our buildings, transportation, energy generation, and then something we called cross-sectional, which deals with climate resilience, things like tree canopy, solid waste, and other largely non-direct emitting sectors. So today we'll be talking about our transportation sector. So just a little snapshot here. So in our light duty fleet, we have 12 different models of electric vehicles. We did recently receive our first electric fire truck, as well as our first electric refuse truck. Both are not yet in service. The fire truck is awaiting completion of our all-electric fire station, which will include the charging infrastructure built directly into the bay for that truck. And that is looking to be completed here, we're hoping within the next month. Same with the refuse truck. It was just received, so we're upfitting it and looking to have that on the road here in the next few weeks. We're also finalizing the installation of the EV charging infrastructure for that refuse truck. We also recently just received our first pursuit rated police EVs. So the Chevy Blazer EVs, the pursuit rated version, those also not yet in service. And, you know, something with a new vehicle that folks don't think about is all of the police vehicles and many of our vehicles get upfitted. But these Chevy Blazer EVs are brand new vehicles, so nobody's upfitted them before. So it's taking longer to move through that process than we would have hoped. So we're looking forward to getting those on the road, getting them field tested, getting our officers comfortable with them, and putting them through their paces for further expansion out into our fleet. Also have, you can see here in this bottom right picture, a Class 8 truck. We got a Department of Environmental Quality here in North Carolina grant for that. And then we've also used FTA low and no emission grants to help fund our buses and moving our buses towards an electrification. So just a snapshot of our fleet as a whole. So as you can see, we have a pretty large fleet and a pretty big makeup, throughout the light, medium, and heavy duty classes. Overall, we are just shy of about 5% fleet-wide electric. But as you can see, we have over 200 electric vehicles in the fleet. And alternative fueled were a little over 10%. So we're moving in the right direction, and we've seen really an acceleration in the last year or two of moving, particularly the light duty, but then as new types of manufacturers are bringing new vehicles to market in these other sectors, we'll start seeing them. So particularly the heavy duties, interestingly enough, been a little more market penetration there. So we're hoping to see some more of those medium duty vehicles become available. So just to touch on a little bit on our charging infrastructure. So we have, well, this number is a little low now, but we have about 330 ports, actually. We just brought a couple of sites online that weren't captured in our dashboard at the time I pulled this. So you can see these are municipally funded charging infrastructure, and these are all at city facilities. The majority of them are behind the gate, so therefore fleet only. However, we do have about 50 ports that are available to the public at no cost. So we do have a wide array of locations and charging infrastructure available. And lots of these areas where you see it looks kind of bare, we don't really have city facilities. And where we do, they're going to be fire stations where really it's largely just a fire truck. So once we start moving there, we'll obviously get some infrastructure in place there. But one of the things that this map shows us and the count shows us is kind of how we're leading the way for the community. We're being an example to the community. So this is community-wide EV charging infrastructure, and so we're at about 950 ports community-wide. But as you can see, look, thinking back to the previous slide, the city's ports account for about a third of our citywide infrastructure. So one of the things we've been doing, similar to what Simi mentioned, is we're using this map to help us identify where some of these charging deserts are, and trying to come up with ways to work with our commercial and private community to try to get charging infrastructure installed to make it more accessible to our community to make the transition over to electric vehicles. So as I mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are transitioning over, and I'll be a little quick with this. So if there's questions, I'm happy to take them. But basically, our internal structure, we have a number of different teams within the city that helps make decisions about transitioning vehicles, not just to EVs, but right sizing the fleet. So if a existing vehicle is oversized or underutilized, either reassigning a vehicle or replacing it with a smaller vehicle helps significantly reduce the emissions impact of that vehicle. We also meet monthly, so we have a EV charging core team, and we meet every month to talk about our current charging projects, our looking forward to needs, talking about new vehicles as they're coming to the market, so that we have a really good open communication throughout the organization. So these teams are made up of fleet managers, and in some cases deputy directors who have the ability to talk and make decisions about the vehicles that we're purchasing. So we have what we call our sustainable and resilient fleet policy. Bottom line, what that means is folks are required to make new vehicle purchases at the lowest emission vehicle that meets that use case for that vehicle. So I've got a slide, and I'll jump to that in a minute, that shows what all that complicated looks like. But basically, we identify what an equivalent replacement would be, and select that lowest emitting vehicle to help. And in many cases, at least in the last year or two, it's been an electric vehicle that we've been able to replace it with. So this talks a little bit, there's an appeal structure. So for some cases, so one of the things, and I'll mention it here at the end too, that we struggle with a little bit is we've got a large number of take-home vehicles. So we've been working on how to address that. Folks taking, for example, electric vehicles home, but not having charging infrastructure to do that. But internally on our fleet, so these are all, this is all information and ways that we look at our fleet in order to help us make decisions about that transition to electric and zero emission vehicles. As I mentioned, that sustainable resilient fleet policy. We also require automatic vehicle locators on all of our vehicles, and that helps us identify where to place charging infrastructure. We also do a lot of piloting of new technology, so as they come out. So we too were early adopter of the battery electric buses. We've got that new electric fire truck coming online soon. We're going to be one of the first cities to have one of those vehicles in place as well. And as I mentioned, also right sizing our fleet. So don't expect you all to be able to read all of this. So one thing, for example, is as we go through, our fleet managers identify which vehicles need replacement, and then they go through and work with the departments to determine, well, can we right size that vehicle? Is that the right type of vehicle? And then identify the equivalent vehicle that would meet those use cases, while considering also the total cost of ownership over the lifetime of the vehicle. So last thing I'll mention, we recently adopted a take-home policy, basically just reimbursement for either charging. So for folks who don't or can't have EV charging infrastructure at home, so reimbursement for them to be able to charge at a public charging station, ideally on level 2. So the reimbursement isn't large enough to do DC fast charge all the time. Really, ideally, they would be able to make it back to one of our fleet chargers to be able to charge there on a level 2. But it is enough of an incentive for folks who can charge at home to help them recoup those costs of installing EV charging infrastructure within the first year of the take-home policy. So we think it's a good way, at least in the interim, as a bridge. So as we move into assigning more and more electric vehicles as take homes, folks are going to be able to utilize them even if they don't live particularly close to a fleet charger or one of our depots. So just a quote, one of the things I'm sure Simi and Wendy come across, it's a lot of the work that we do in this transition is difficult. It's new, it's change. So we're moving forward with it because it's the right thing to do. It is hard, but as you can see, slow and steady wins the race. So thank you all. Back to you, Brent.
And Darren, thank you so much. Charlotte is definitely one of the leaders in transportation electrification, and thanks for tapping into some of the behind the scene things that you do that enable you to stay up to date, like the core team that you talked about. All right, now I want to bring everyone on screen. We've got a couple minutes. I do want to try and get through some of these questions. I do appreciate everyone in the Q&A section of their questions. Simi, I'm going to go with you first just because you were first. Can you share more about your bulk buy program for EV and EVSE? How is this set up?
We currently run a bulk buy for solar. We don't run a bulk buy for EVs or EVSEs, so that's more a future program that we're looking into and hope to start. We've got a really successful solar bulk buy program going on right now.
Gotcha. And I have to mention our Drive EV Fleets program. It's a purchasing collaborative that has both EVs and EV infrastructure in them. If you want to take a look at it, I hope Kyle can put it in there, but it's driveevfleets.org. Wendy, for you, how do you suggest restoring momentum in cities that have had a negative experience with electrifying transit buses when a manufacturer went bankrupt? Is there a best way to persuade staff that an electric bus from a legacy manufacturer would likely be a better experience?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit what Aaron touched on at the end of his talk, which is this technology, it's rapidly changing, right? Those Proterra buses, that first version, we're getting rid of ours as well. They only got, 30 miles on a single charge. They had to rely on opportunity charging. And those Gillig buses we're about to get, we're anticipating we're going to get anywhere from 180 to 220 miles on a single charge. So the technology is only going to get better. But additionally, I think leaders within these communities also need to acknowledge the folks that had those Proterra buses, they were early adopters. And being an early adopter means you are taking risks. And sometimes that risk works out and sometimes it doesn't. And I think we need to have, especially in government, an openness of risk taking. And if it doesn't work, you pivot, you go to something better. And I could talk about it for hours because I know there's some other challenges because a lot of transit agencies, we rely on Federal Transit Administration funding for these buses. And part of that funding requires us to operate a vehicle for 12 years, or else we have to get a waiver. So there's a lot of financial complexity associated with that. But I think the big thing is creating an environment where there is risk tolerance and the ability to move on and learn, because there's a lot of stuff we learned from that Proterra experience, and we are just making better and better vehicles. And that applies to other vehicles as well, not just transit buses.
But I want to thank our speakers once again. Congratulations on all your work that you've done and what you've done or what you plan on doing in the future. For the audience, keep moving forward. Please join us for our upcoming webinars on tax credits. The one that I talked about earlier is on August 12th. And then also just in kind of parlaying with the emergency response that Wendy was talking about, we do have an emergency response vehicle webinar on August 21st. So please join us for that. Thank you, everyone. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.